Go ahead and get everyone's attention, please. We're going to get started with the Commissioner Status Update Meeting. Today's date is February 4, 2025. The time is 10:01 a.m. In attendance are Commissioners Eberline, Duncan, and Matari. I'm calling this meeting to order. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Only I think that subsection A of 1, we're not quite ready to go there yet. So we'll hold it off until the 18th, I think, or we can do it at the business meeting next week. Business meeting's at 9 a.m. next week, I think. Yeah, would you like us to put it on the business meeting?
David Mendez with Turner and Townsend Hearing. Yes, I'm hoping to get the updated pricing. So if I get that commitment that they'll have it to us by the end of the week so you can look at it, I would like to put it on, I'll shoot for Tuesday's meeting. But if I don't, then I'll need to push off until Thursday.
And again, if we put it on the agenda, we can always pull it.
Yeah, so let's put it on the agenda. But just so you know, our meeting is moved to 9 a.m., and I think we're combining the...
I did see that, yeah.
Yeah, combining.
So, okay, so we'll pull off 1A. Any other changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Public comment. Would anyone like to speak? Hearing none. Okay, let's move on to item 1. Justice Building Update with David Mendez.
Good morning. David Mendez with Turner and Townsend Hearing. I've given you an update of my spreadsheet for where we stand with budget. Again, this is all still under the GMP for the project, so we're not talking about increases or decreases to the overall contract. We're talking about contingency items. So the biggest thing on this, I don't have any new items, but some of the items that were yellow, which means it's not finalized or signed, some of those have been converted to, I finalized them. It's items we've talked about, so those items are now finalized. We still have some in yellow waiting for pricing. The items in green, specifically on the first page, item 39, so that was an item that we were thinking there was going to be a cost to, and ended up being a no-cost change. On the second page, there's an item that was C17. It's repair to damage that was done. That's a contractor obligation. They damaged it. They needed to repair it, so that was taken off as an added cost. That was a placeholder. We were trying to decide where that belonged in the contract, and the contractor has taken responsibility for that. So no added items. I also do not have in here because I don't know how we're handling budget-wise. Last Thursday, you approved the changes that were made to the one courtroom. We know that it's $12,000 roughly, and I didn't put it on here yet until I find out how that's going to be funded and paid for. But I think it'll end up being on within this contingency, and then we'll receive reimbursement from the courts. I think that's how it will end up working.
Yeah, so we have to make the change and pay for it, and then the courts will reimburse. So it's a reimbursement situation. So we'll have to flag that invoice to make sure it gets passed on to them for reimbursement.
Not that it really matters, but there's been a lot of discussion through this process that the state would reimburse us for items, but that wouldn't happen until summer. Is that still the case with this?
They did not put a deadline on this, so we can find that out.
Okay.
We'll work it out.
Yeah.
Just a brief item on FF&E. So the furnishings for the building, we got pricing back. We reviewed it, Jeff and I, he shared that with some of you as well. They headed down the wrong path with what we were expecting for quality of furnishings. They're in a higher end supplier. They're having to go out now to some lower end, more affordable pricing. So that's happening. And again, as I mentioned, I'm hoping to have that for you revised by the end of the week. So I have something to present. I am, timing-wise, that order needs to be placed by the end of February. So that's my goal for this. So that gives you time to look at and review the pricing that we have on that and make adjustments. We've gone through with all the departments. We've added some. Originally, we were talking about desks and chairs only. We've added some detail to that, and so I want to give you the opportunity to scrutinize that and decide whether or not you want to do that. So those will be labeled separately as elective items. So anyway, so I'll get that for you and give you the opportunity to review it.
How are you keeping track of what's needed? Are you doing it by department? So this department needs so many chairs, so many desks, so many file cabinets, kind of thing?
By floor, by room.
Okay.
So as far as departments, there's some mingling of departments within the floor of the, but it'll be by floor.
Okay.
So first floor, for instance, we've got, we have the sheriff's office has a little bit, AMP has the majority of furnishings in that floor, so there's a little bit of mixing. So that's how it's broken out. And it, like I said, it's by room, and there's a subtotal by room, and it gives you what items are in each one. So,
Commissioner Eberlein? No? I do have a question just on the furniture. Are you going to present us with some options or what you just think is going to be the best option?
I need to get that clarified. What Jeff has talked to them about is, for instance, on chairs, everybody has kind of a preference, and so we're asking them for 3 options for that. Okay. I'm not sure how far we're going with the different options. So, but yes.
I think it would be nice if we could not only see the numbers, but also just maybe images too of what it is that we're looking at.
What we're talking to them about is getting some physical examples, so it's always helpful. So,
okay.
You know, sort of like the kind that you're sitting on right now?
Yeah, that's for a number of those. For instance, in an office, we're looking at probably 2 guest chairs, and some of the offices are larger offices that have a table in them. The chairs that go around that. This is what we intended, was something along those lines, something that's consistent with what the county has done on other facilities. So,
thank you.
Any other questions?
With the exception of in the courtrooms and in the judges' chambers, the intent was to have higher end in those locations in the jurors' deliberation room. Unless I'm heading the wrong direction with that, that's where we're kind of going.
Well, taxpayers paid for most of this stuff, so
Understood.
we need to keep that in mind.
And that's why we're through rejecting our second iteration of the pricing, and we're going to a third. So.
Yeah.
I noticed that.
Okay.
Well, I think it would be nice too, just to have an option in that area as well, just so that we can see, you know, because sometimes the price is a lot more, but the quality isn't there.
Right.
And other times the price is a little more, but the quality is way
In all
beyond
of this,
it.
you probably do in your personal lives, but you know, sometimes it's you want to go with brand names or something that, and sometimes that's not the way to go. You know, you'll pay for the name, and we want to avoid that.
Okay.
So I think if you even had like item numbers, like if you're doing, let's just talk about the judges' chambers. So here's the file cabinet that is kind of slated for that, but then here's the file cabinet slated for the prosecutor's office, and then if we could compare them to see if it could be the same, you know.
I'll have to work with them on how they're going to be presenting that. So we'll probably have a main sheet, and then we'll have an option sheet, and somehow tie those together that we can say, okay, item number 39 needs to go with option A, so, or option B or option C, something along those lines.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll work with them on that.
Any other questions? No? Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Okay, on to item number 2, code violation authorization to levy fine. CV 24-0474. This is a discussion item with Director David Callahan.
Good morning, Commissioners. We have, in my view, a very serious situation near the Athol area where a owner has built a 3-story building without the benefit of a building permit or inspections or plan review. We learned about this from a neighbor. We actually did a stop work while the building was under construction and a notice of violation, which you'll recall people received by certified mail, and to no effect. The building has been completed. The neighbors now tell us that there are children living in this building. I intend to seek legal remedy through our legal counsel, but in the meantime, this rises in my mind to the level of egregiousness that Commissioners Matari and Duncan will recall we spoke of when you allowed us to amend the land use code to allow a $1,000 a day fine as something that I could implement. In this case, I would like to do $1,000 fine to see if that gets this property owner's attention, and then proceed from there. But in my view, we need to do something immediately because we have no way of knowing whether these children or anyone else's lives are in danger. Oh, and one other thing I forgot. This happens to be over the aquifer, and we have no idea what the sewage disposal is.
Questions, comments? I do have a question. Has the property owner responded in any way, shape, or form?
I'll turn to Deputy, who knows the details on this.
Craig Davidson, Deputy Director for Operations Community Development. I'm just going through, there's 3 code violations, one from 23, one from 24 and 25, and I don't see any of the notes in any of the files where the property owner has directly contacted code enforcement for remedy.
Or any communication, okay.
So with the fine, no matter how much it turns out to be, is this just a lien that's placed on the property?
I haven't done this
refuse,
before, so I don't actually know. I'm going to learn while doing. But I think it's like we do fines for code enforcement, where it shows up in our records. They owe it. We won't issue a building permit until they pay it.
Okay.
Would be my assumption, but I'll clarify that with Pat.
Yeah, and for Commissioner Everline's benefit, there was an ordinance that was passed that allowed the director, I believe with the permission of the board, to impose a $1,000 a day fine up to $20,000. So it was limited. And this is for the most egregious situations, which this is what this sounds like, building a 3-story building and occupying it without any understanding of what was
From the visuals we have seen, photographs, it looks like the foundation doesn't meet code. And that's just the observation from the outside from a person that's not a building inspector.
Yeah. Okay.
But that, to me, is extraordinarily worrisome.
Well, I guess, we just have to decide as a board if we want to give direction to the director to proceed with this.
And Mr. Chair, if I could, I did drop down a note on one of the older ones, and the property owner did reach out to one of the code enforcement personnel on 1/7 of 25 and asked what they needed to do for a permit, and they were referred to building for that. I'll check the link on the file to see if there's any link for an established building permit. And let me go through each case so I can make sure there's nothing on that one.
And this was January 7th of this year?
January 7th
So
of
just
this year.
a month basically ago?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Okay.
And while Craig's looking, just as a reminder, the land use code actually authorizes me to do this without your permission. But you will recall during the hearing, I volunteered that we would have these kinds of discussions before I pulled the trigger on any of these.
Okay. Can you, sorry, can you update us at the next community development meeting?
Of course. And I normally would try to do this sort of thing on that kind of meeting, but I thought this was urgent enough. It needs to be in front of you.
And that's fine, and we may actually be canceling the 10 a.m. if there's no other things, so it can be handled at the 6 p.m. if you want on next Thursday.
Understood.
There has been no permit submitted for that structure as of this date.
But there's been communication.
There has, January 7th of this year.
I kind of feel like we should exhaust that if it's only been a month. You know, if it was a year ago, that'd be a different story, but, you know, follow-up. But if you can't get the follow-up.
That's really where I'm going with this, is if you're comfortable with what you just said, we'll follow up. If we don't get a response, I would like to just do the $1,000 fine, if you're okay with that.
How are you going to enforce a $1,000 fine?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
How are you going to enforce a $1,000 fine?
Again, we wouldn't, in my view, we wouldn't issue a building permit. But this is one of those, I'll circle back with legal counsel and make sure I understand exactly how these things work. It could be, since we would ordinarily enforce the regulations in district court, that we would authorize the judge to make that part of her or his ruling.
So right now, what you want besides the building permit, you want the property vacated, or the building vacated, is that correct?
Ultimately, yes.
Okay, so even if they do apply for permit, if they don't vacate the structure, then that's still an issue?
That's why I thought we should talk with Pat and proceed with whatever legal remedies available.
Okay.
Because at this point, I have no way of knowing that people's lives are not at risk.
Wouldn't you want to inspect the property first before determining if someone's?
That would be ideal, but we have no way to make that happen.
Yeah.
Unless people apply for a building permit, it's trespass unless they authorize it.
Yes, okay. So if you communicate with them and you could ask for authorization to inspect, because if you're seeking the building permit, but they've built the property, you know, the structure soundly enough,
Yes.
there's other options there.
That's entirely possible.
Okay.
It may work itself out that we connect with the owner, they say, we're intending to file for a permit. We say, can we inspect? They say yes. There's no need for the $1,000 fine.
Okay.
I just wanted some backup in this case, if you'll pardon the term, in case I need it.
I mean, I think if you act appropriately and reasonably and try to make, you know, good faith efforts to communicate and at least, you know, ensure that the structure is safe, then you use your discretion.
Thank you.
Commissioners, I'll make sure I'll take that to task. I'll personally make contact, see what the status is, see where they're going, what their intent is, and then I'll provide a status update to you all.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on this one? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you kindly.
All right, on to item number 3, assess, collect, distribute, committee update with Julina Hildreth.
Good morning. Julina Hildreth with the Auditor's Office, for the record. We're just giving it, I'm just giving an update. We have met actually twice since the last update. We decided that we're going to meet twice a month, excuse me, for the next several months while the assessor's office and treasurer are working on the testing. Typically, this meeting would be to give you an update on the simpatico testing and so forth, but just to let you know, you guys are having a meeting this afternoon with the treasurer's office regarding that a little. So Jill will get into depth with that, but just wanted to give you guys an update that as far as the assessor's office goes, the clerk's office has received the year-end certified rolls. Tax bills went out in February. Dyson did say that the assessor's office is finally in on-base. I didn't realize that there were departments that weren't using on-base yet. And other than that, everything seems to be going pretty smooth. We're just working out a few kinks with some of the state reporting dashboard. We're trying to use more of their reports, and so we have a few reports that we need to get some updates on. But other than that, everything's going smooth.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? No? Commissioner Duncan? No?
Perfect.
All right. Hey, thank you. All right, on to item number 4, Historic Preservation Commission update. And this is with Jonathan Mueller, and he is the chair of the commission. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning, Commissioners. Thank you. John Mueller with the Historic Pres Commission. I have 3 items this morning I'd like to visit with you about, if I could. The first one, represented by that initial bit of folded material, represents 2 memorandums of understanding that have been in with the legal office for review. A number of months ago, Idaho Transportation came forward to us and offered gave us a presentation on the project from Highway 41 to US 95, which is essentially an 8-lane redo of the corridor, 4 lanes in each direction. And as part of that, they had offered the opportunity in the form of a $25,000 line item or grant, if you will, to do some interpretive signage that we would coordinate with them. That happened at the same time on the Centennial Trail Foundation, which I'm also a member of. We had been talking about a larger historic sign network from State Line out to Higgins Point. And so we thought this might be the opportunity to do a pilot project to take a look at what that net might look like, see if it warrants taking any further steps to do a larger system of signage. Thought we could partner with each other, share maintenance costs, Trail Foundation through me, and coordinating with the county through Historic Pres could do the project in coordination with Nick. And so I sent this forward for review for legal to begin to talk about how we might get that done. A little counter, I know, to regular procedures, and I'm very sorry for that. Old private sector guy used to just running with it and coming back to you all after it's vetted. But nonetheless, that's the opportunity we have, and certainly there are issues that go with this. Discussion about responsibility for replacement and maintenance, replacement if there is damage, or the ongoing maintenance of the signs themselves. And so I think this issue, that's the opportunity in front of us. Do we want to maybe take the next step? I know Nick is here today. I could have him come up and maybe comment if he would like to. But this would represent maybe a good first step on that larger net with a partner to take it forward. So really the issue is, do we want to do this or not? And, you know, sometimes it's tough because we can do something doesn't mean we always should. There are other considerations, and that's really, I think, what we have to get to today so we can advise transportation. Okay?
Comments, questions?
I do have a question. Is there any way that ITD can partner directly with the Centennial Trail Foundation?
That is an option. They have talked about that, bypass the county, but they started with us. And so, you know, I think in terms of some of the things we're doing as a Historic Pres Commission, you know, we thought it was at least a good thing to begin to have the conversation with you all. We could become a secondary partner if that would be your wish, because quite honestly, we're having the same discussions. You know, we have a signage person who's busy nonstop, you know, replacing signage. And so is this something we want to do? We do have some historic signage as part of an interpretive thing along the trail. Some of it has weathered very well for 25 to 30 years. We anticipate doing something very similar to that. We have some other made out of wood and some other constructs that had a high level of craftsmanship and look really terrific. But between the weather and, you know, some vandalism, they're you know, they need some help. And so that's the issue. We certainly don't want to burden the Trail Foundation nor the county through Nick's office or whatever office with a future liability. And without some understanding of what that might be. And so if that's, yeah, I'm sorry, sir.
What's the cost you're expecting?
Well, I think the grant is in the amount of $25,000. And so they've talked about 2 signs. I think we could do more if we wanted to than that. You know, at $12,500 a sign, that's.
Where would the signs be set up at?
Well, it would probably be in that corridor between 41 and US 95. We would have to select a spot in between. That's part of what comes next.
For me as a taxpayer, I'd say not only no, but hell no.
Okay, and just from my own understanding, why might that be?
Just because there's a lot of hurt out there in the world, and there's a lot of expense for dollars, and
Good.
so taxpayers are going to bear everything
Okay,
in one shape or the other.
okay. Other comments?
Well, I think we have to be careful, excuse me, of, you know, one, I think Commissioner Eberlein makes the point, you know, is the money coming from taxpayers? Ultimately, grant money does come from taxpayers, but it wouldn't be coming from property tax
It would not.
necessarily. It'd be coming from IDT or
The first
the
cost
state,
would be
right?
covered, that's correct.
Yeah, but it does open the door for what happens with maintenance, and this is that kind of creep that ultimately the local taxpayer would have to bear that burden. So, you know, I think if anything, it would be prudent to at least talk with Nick, Director Snyder at Parks and Waterways, to find out, you know, what's going on with that. You know, would there be a burden to the county? And 2, as Commissioner Duncan has says, you know, if there's a way to pull the county out of it and make it between the state and
And the foundation.
yeah, and the foundation.
Then I will ask that question, and if that's the case, we'll move in that direction. Because it sounds like that there is enough concern here about, you know, what
Ongoing
might be a burden,
maintenance. Yeah.
that we should maybe take that step.
You know, but I do want to thank you, though, because you really took the initiative to kind of bring something that was much more complete to us, as opposed to, you know, by having an actual memorandum of understanding to look at and review. So,
Well, thank you. I think, yeah.
So
Mr.
there are people that really like to have all these kind of bells and whistles, and it's really neat. And some people are really passionate about it, and I'm passionate about some things, but not other things. And so the happy medium is to where it makes it to, you know, these people are willing to put out this much money to build whatever it happens to be, and these over here, they don't need it.
Well, I agree, you know, and one of the things we're talking about, perhaps that's just a recent discussion, is perhaps there's a way to do an app. And you have just a simple little composite stick sign that has a
QR
code bar on it. You come up with the app, scan it, and the whole thing pops up on your phone as you ride your bike by. And you could do that, have all the history you want, and not have the maintenance of a larger set of signs. Because those composite signs that we sometimes use for mile markers or something else are pretty tough. And so, again, there may be another way to do this, which represents maybe, has a first cost, but as an ongoing maintenance cost, maybe is less burdensome. So we'll look at that. And if they want to transfer and work with the foundation, we'll do that. We just thought partnership-wise, it might be a good thing to have us all together, but certainly understand the concern. Okay?
Thank you.
Now, second item is just the single page in the middle, represents the 100-year anniversary celebration that we've talked with you before about for the courthouse, and we've been proceeding forward. This is a little summary sheet that goes with that. We've made great progress in terms of discussions. Met last week with Judge McHugh and recently retired Judge Mitchell about being able to help us with some of the presentations, as it looks like we're going to start next fall with a series of presentations through the Museum of North Idaho. Some at the community room with the City of Coeur d'Alene, but we also have talked about perhaps using the large courthouse room for these presentations, and would like your permission to do that. There is some, I think there is some finagling that might have to happen to make that occur. I think, as I understand it, there are hours that go with the use of that room. There's also security, so we would like to understand better, but we thought, what better way to invite the public in to hear these presentations over a 6 to 8 month period than perhaps the use of that room. And again, just to remind you, this is done in conjunction with the America 250 celebration, which culminates on the 4th of July in 2026, celebrating the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Okay, and so this whole thing is just kind of sequentially got pushed to that date as we applied for and were successful with that grant. Now, some of the things we're talking about in terms of topics for these presentations, obviously the significant court cases, true crime. One of the things we had also talked about last week were perhaps presentations from women and judges in the law, talking about Judge Balser and others that were here before us. We want to talk a little bit about the architecture, the architect, and perhaps site history, where we got our start from, where all this came from, how this site landed to be the courthouse. And these are all about 45-minute presentations, 2 or 3 people on the panel, PowerPoint presentation. You invite the public in, and they just have a chance to kind of listen to the story, tell the story. And so, interestingly enough, one that has come up recently was a discussion about the tourist camp. And strangely enough, just that way, I'm trying to orient myself here, just north of us here and west of the courthouse area, in the former days when we just had a courthouse on this site and a jail, that this wooded area was something called the tourist camp. And so when we got our first highways in the 10s and the 20s, people would travel from city to city. Their limit on travel, 50, 60, 70 miles at the most, they would stay at these tourist camps. And our county city tourist camp was right out our doors here. And we have photographs of that, so we thought that might be a good discussion, good presentation. One that also came up kind of involves you all. And not a lot of people understand what and where county commissioners are and came from. What is that form of governance? How did we get to this? Why are you here? And we thought it would be great to maybe have a panel of active and past county commissioners, if we could do that, to talk about that form of governance, how far back it goes, and the importance of that form of local government in our self-governance. And so I would like to maybe have you guys think about that a little bit if we could. We're still kind of finalizing the list, but we are thinking that this could be a pretty compelling way to usher in the new building, celebrate the old building, and of course, there are all sorts of other cases in terms of the judges, defense attorneys, and significant cases that have happened in that courthouse. And so there are people that are kind of, the museum is ready to partner with us on this and take this forward as kind of a means to make that celebration happen. And of course, you're aware of the grant and the 250 grant for the Marker Network, and of course the photographic exhibit as well. Courtney has begun work on that, the research to find photographs, and so we'll have more to report to you perhaps in a year summary in a week or 10 days or so. Okay? So that's a little bit about that. Questions, if you have any, or thoughts or suggestions?
So regarding, and I assume it's courtroom 1 that you'd be using, and I think is that on the 3rd floor?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, in order to use that, you're thinking after hours at 5:30.
Yes, but, I guess if we had to flex the time, we should talk about that.
Okay. So I think, I don't know if you have dates that you can throw out, or if it would just be on like Tuesdays or Wednesdays or Thursdays or something like that.
The dates are in the middle of the sheet.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. Oh, that's great. That's at the end of the year. So we have plenty of time, because it would take county staff time to be able to do that. We might be able to work it out where if the historic preservation is responsible for making sure nobody goes throughout the building and things of that nature, then we may not have to have paid staff, but that's something that we'll have to work out.
Yeah, I think the big things are, one, does it cause any inconvenience or, disruption at the existing courthouse? So we want to make sure it doesn't, involve that. The second is, what kind of expense would be involved? And then the only other thing that I would probably request is have someone with a camera and just record it so it can be pushed up to YouTube, because you may have 5 people, you may have 50 people, but at least it's there for people to see thereafter.
I think that's a great suggestion, actually, to have all these recorded so people could see them at a later date.
So as long as the cost is just very minimal and the disruption is, not there, I don't have a problem with you holding these panels and talking about this stuff.
Okay, with that said, then what would be, what is the next step for us? How do we coordinate this?
Did you have any comments or anything, Commissioner Eberlein? No? Okay.
So my thoughts would be somebody, whether it's you with your liaison or if you guys want to direct someone else to contact, actually Director Voller's here, would be the bailiffs to find out, okay, if we want to use the courtroom from 5:30 to 7:30 on these, dates in the next 2 years, what would that entail? And the bailiffs will definitely be able to, along with Director Voller, let you know what that would happen. And potentially we could flex some staff because we do have cleaning, we do have maintenance people here after hours too. So I think there's ways to get around it, but definitely acknowledging it could potentially cost county staff time if we don't do it correctly.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that, and it's interesting because when we talk to the judges, they have all the same concerns, but the more they talked about it, actually that would be kind of cool to bring people in and let them experience that room, because it's a pretty compelling place to be.
And I'd be comfortable if a judge was there.
Well, I think they're going to try to be there. So anyways, that's sort of how we're progressing and things are moving forward. But we hope to have a start next fall, and then we would go through the winter into the spring and culminate on the 4th of July. Okay?
Okay.
Then the last item very quickly is this just came up and I wanted to run it past you. We were contacted by the Latah County Historical Society about this opportunity to nominate a city or a county for a World War II heritage city or county. There's only one that will be recognized in the state of Idaho. And so they contacted us, they contacted also Bonner County, and as we talked about it, we thought that because of the Farragut site, that would be a natural for either Kootenai County or Kootenai County in conjunction with Bonner County, because a lot of the sailors did go up to Sandpoint, and they have an ongoing USO site that remains from the war. We thought this could be a really interesting thing to do jointly together. I provide this information from you with the links from the National Park Service if you want to go take a look at this program. We can jointly apply with Bonner County if we want, and we think this would be maybe a good thing to pursue, to get this recognition for Kootenai County and for Bonner County as a legacy or a heritage site for World War II, new program. So, I would maybe just like to have the ticket punched and maybe take this to the next step to come back to you if we could.
Questions, comments?
Again, just about cost, if there's any ongoing cost afterwards, like for instance, Veterans Plaza, was all paid for with private dollars, there was no tax dollars. And so my understanding is the upkeep as well is still with private dollars. So that would be my question.
It doesn't appear that there's any cost. It's more just a recognition of significant contributions to the war effort, both locally and with military sites. And so as you think about probably nothing more significant, I think, in Idaho than the Farragut site.
Sure. I would be okay if the application was brought forward in a business meeting when everybody had enough time to consider it.
I think it's fine as long as we can just understand the cost, the actual hard costs for the program and any other costs that would be associated with it, because we just don't want to, creep into,
Understood.
expanding the need for more dollars to go to maintain something.
Well, interestingly enough, they have two kind of workshops to get more information. I had signed up for the one that was at 10 o'clock today.
Oh,
So I'll get back on the March one, and we'll have more information for you next month. But
Perfect.
I wanted to get to you early with this, so you understood it's in the works, so you weren't surprised. And but it strikes me as actually, from a standpoint of the tourism and all the other things we've talked about with what Courtney has brought forward with the net, just another piece of what we're trying to do here.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Hey, thank you so much.
Anything else for me while I'm here?
No? No,
Commissioners,
thank you.
thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, on to item 5, IAC, Idaho Association of Counties, takeaways. We were at the Idaho Association of Counties winter meeting last week, and Commissioner Duncan.
Yes, and I was hoping that maybe either one of you, if you have takeaways from it as well, that you could add in. I found some of the workshops kind of fascinating, AI in particular, and I think the county does need policy going forward. And I understand that there's a draft policy floating around, so I'd be interested in taking a look at that. And then ACIs, so they're no longer called ACIs. I think they're just area of impacts. We're feverishly working on that in community development. But what I found very interesting, I don't know that it's been pointed out before, that the areas would need to have sewer and water within 5 years. So I know that the previous board had a situation where a property owner wanted to do something and the city was stepping in and saying, no, you can't do that, except they could not guarantee that sewer would be there within 10 years. And so that was kind of a negative effect on this property owner, because it's, and so anyway, so I found that fascinating, and that's something I want to just keep in the forefront of my mind. And then also there's another county that has cell phone tower ordinance, and they talked about the difference. I don't think the 1996 Federal Act took into consideration 4G versus 5G, and whether or not if the lack of coverage is the only thing that needs to be considered. So I want to get a hold of that ordinance and see if that's anything that the county, our county, could consider. And then also in the comp plan workshop, they talked about a future zoning map, and that is not part of the comp plan. They recommended that counties do not have a future zoning map as part of the comp plan. And so I found that fascinating as well.
Commissioner Eberline. Nothing. I found it interesting mostly because as the chair of the District 1 Legislative Committee, we are working on trying to get some legislation passed and starting to work with our state legislators to hopefully get some legislation passed that will make counties' lives, county elected officials' lives, a lot easier. So that is ongoing, and as far as just some of the specifics, I agree with you on. I sat in the same course with you on the area of impact, and there was another discussion about how growth really doesn't pay for itself, and I actually obtained a University of Idaho study on that, where they actually looked into that and showed how the growth really doesn't pay for itself, that the people who live here are going to have to bear the expense of the infrastructure so more people can move here. And that will be discussed more in the coming days and weeks. So, but it was a good meeting, I thought. If there's nothing else, public comment. Come on up, Mr. Assessor.
Commissioners, just a question. I too was at the conference last week, and thought there were many good takeaways. I didn't prepare any summary to give you, but your comment, Commissioner Matari, perked my focus, my attention. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the type of legislation that you're looking at, maybe the House bill number?
Well, I don't have the specific bill numbers in front, but we're looking at some regarding 911. We're looking at possibility of, it's not dead yet, the resort tax. I think you might have even been in on the meeting for that, so, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else? Nope. 10:46, meeting adjourned.